Hello and welcome back to the MacGuffin Tapes. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm here joined as always by Ala. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing all right.
Doing all right? You
Yes,
sound a bit, I don't know, mellow. Is it the weather? I mean,
the weather is actually quite fine as far as I'm concerned.
anyway, we're here to talk about a new movie that came out here in Switzerland, but it was released last year, which is Rental Family by the Japanese director Hikari, and it's a Japanese American production. And yeah, I actually suggested the movie this time around because, well, I like to watch animes and I'm in general a fan of Japanese culture, I would say. But actually, I had seen a YouTube video last year about a topic that's related to this movie, and it was basically a person who was paid to hang out with people and pretended to be their friends. And this was sort of, I actually don't remember if it was a video from this person himself, or if it was a sort of documentary on YouTube. But I thought it was quite interesting, and yeah, for me, I'm familiar that in Japan there are stories that I read where yeah people tend to feel quite lonely in Japan among all those or in those gigantic cities that they have. And then when I saw that this movie came out, and I said, "Oh, okay, this is sounds something like something similar." And yeah, I was very intrigued, so that's why I suggested it.
But you suggested after you already watched it, right?
No.
All right, I see.
So yeah, but this is interesting because I wanted to talk a bit about going into a movie with certain expectations or feelings. And at least for me, I watched this movie yesterday. So I was already interested in this topic, and I felt like I could relate to it on a sort of emotional level. Well, yesterday I actually had sort of a busy day, and then I was looking forward actually to going to the cinema and going to the city because I don't know, I wasn't around much, around people a lot this last week, and was mostly working from home. So I was looking forward to going to the cinema and going to the city and being around some people. So that I guess also defined a bit how I reacted to this movie. May I disclose what you mentioned to me in our chat, or do you want to tell us how just a bit your general opinion of the movie?
I must say, I am not at all familiar with the Japanese culture. Whenever this becomes even more apparent whenever I watch a Japanese film, because it's just I never really understand the perspective. For example, what was this film from last year or the year before? This film that was very popular.
Do you mean the animation or what?
No, I mean, you know me. It
No,
can't
but
be
I wanted to
animation.
say it's not a Japanese film, but you mentioned you saw a K-pop Demon Hunters and you liked it very much. So,
Perfect Days. I mean, Perfect Days. This was a film that was also had a lot of buzz and a lot of people really liked it. And I guess the vibe of it is attractive, and especially to Europeans also who are very busy and there's a lot going on. And in this movie, you can just take time to relax a little bit, and there's not really a lot going on. And it's more just the vibe than the plot. And it's like, I get it in a way, but I really don't get it on a personal level. Like, whenever I watch a film, I really mostly prefer for it to have plot. And Whenever it doesn't, I tend to really not like them. And also just generally, like there are some other films that are not strictly speaking Japanese productions, but they are happening in Japan, and they do kind of give you a glimpse, maybe through European eyes or through American eyes, through like the characters that are in them, how it is to be there and how different it is. And I do understand that the culture is probably very different and it's not very clear how you are, as a European person, knowing nothing, supposed to understand it. And I guess in this film, it's also one of those where you see it through a through an American's eyes or perspective, and you are well, you are kind of introduced into it through them. It's not strictly speaking just Japanese, right? But yeah, I mean, it's either the culture is just so far away from me that I really don't get it, or it's something else, but I just have a hard time with Japanese films, I must say, in general. So
Yeah.
that's not even getting into this film specifically.
Hmm. No, but it's absolutely true. I would say this is, you said the plot isn't very on the foreground in this movie, and it's more like sort of the ambience, or it's more about the feelings, maybe, and
I would
it's
say in this
slow
film it's
movie.
rather very plotty in
Yeah.
comparison to others that I mean.
Okay. But it maybe also the scenes are rather slow or a bit extended. Maybe that's a bit different from movies that we generally watch.
Hmm.
And then maybe regarding that you can't really connect, or that the culture seems far away, I actually have some thoughts that I've been developing over the last couple of years about, actually, I think that Japanese culture has a lot in common with our Swiss culture here.
Mm.
So maybe we can use that as a bridge for you.
Hmm.
But I wanted to briefly just summarize the plot, or the premise, actually, just for the people who haven't seen the movie, and to let them know what it's about, and then we'll go into full spoiler discussion. The premise is, it's this actor called Philip, played by Brendan Fraser, who is living in Japan. He has been living there for a while, and he is a struggling actor. And then he gets this opportunity to join this company who provides a special service to people, which is basically that they play a character in their lives that they need for a certain situation. For example, as a sort of emotional support, I mean, being their friend. But there are other examples in the movie where these services get a bit more specific.
Hmm.
Does that sound about right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you were saying that this is a real service that exists in Japan, and I mean, maybe it also exists in other places, but I think Japan is more known to have that. And I was only partly surprised to find out that it is true because whenever there's something crazy, but somebody says that exists in Japan, I'm like, well, not surprised because they kind of tend to have a bit of like stuff going on there, unusual things. Um, but also, it's not the only film that portrays this. There have been other films that either do it in a general context, not only Japanese, but there is one film by actually Werner Herzog, Werner Herzog, who made it specifically about Japan, and it's like a semi-documentary. I would be interested. I've never not seen this one, but I would be interested to check it out because, well, if it's a semi-documentary, that means it could have a little bit of, more maybe variety or diversity in terms of the services that they provide. It would be interesting to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Like we said maybe a bit. So for some, this movie might be a bit far away regarding what this movie talks about, and maybe a bit difficult to connect to. I really like this movie. I have the feeling that maybe you a bit less than I, but please don't hold back your punches because I think this will make for a great conversation.
I was kind of thinking back to our previous discussion of Stranger Things season 5, and I kind of, after some time passed, like after a few days since we recorded, I was thinking I did hold back because the more time passes, the madder I get about this season. So I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna hold back on this one. I'm gonna
Yeah,
unleash it all.
yeah,
So believe me, I will tell you everything, I think.
good, good. No, because that would be a first that you held back on the last movie, right? For you.
Yeah, I guess so, but also sometimes when I do not hold back, I kind of leave feeling like, well, I mean, I was a bit harsh. There were some good things about it.
Hmm.
But, and I kind of always try to come into it with that perspective since then. But then I feel like it wasn't true to my opinion. And I'm a hater, so I just have to let it out. And I think I will this time.
Yeah, just let it out. Let this be your catharsis, your therapy session about this movie. Don't keep things locked in because then then you might need to go to therapy, or then we will need to record a second show. Okay. Yeah, let's dive into the movie. And I thought just to start, I would like to ask you a question that the characters themselves ask at the end of the movie, which is, would you hire this service? And I think they also ask, who would you want this person to play or act as?
I can't really imagine doing that, to be honest. I just feel like I have no need for this. I am, unlike the people in this film, I am in a self-induced loneliness where I try to actually limit my social interactions. So for me to expand it would be kind of, I mean, I don't have a problem expanding my social interactions through the people that are already in my life. I rather kind of strive to have make time for myself where I can just be by myself. But clearly this is not at all what is going on in this film. So I feel like I can't really relate to this. It generally is a bit bizarre to me that you would hire people for this. Obviously, the context of, like an escort is the most, like, is the closest to what we know in our culture. So as escort in the sense like somebody accompanies you as a plus one, and that's the tame variant of it, obviously. So that I guess I can just see in the sense of is a bit closer to our culture and is known to us. But hiring someone to act as your, I don't know, a mother or a father, I guess in a therapeutic way, maybe. I mean, you kind of go to therapy sometimes if you do like Gestalt therapy or like Gestalt therapy, then that is kind of what you do. You can play both those roles or somebody can play this role for you and then you go through this interaction that you couldn't have in the real context with your real parent, for example. So I guess maybe that works, but it would just have to be in a completely different environment than what is happening in this film. Do you have someone like that you would that you would
No,
hire to perform a specific role?
no, I was thinking maybe not a specific role, but maybe in a similar regard, there is a character more towards the beginning of the movie who is a gamer, and then Philip is I guess, pretends to be his friend and hangs out with him and goes on
Mm-hmm.
adventures with him. I mean, something along those lines, I could see myself
Mm-hmm.
doing, like just as a support buddy, someone you
Mm-hmm.
can call up on
Yeah,
when
that
you need
actually
it.
makes sense. Yeah, that is a also in in the context of the film, I guess he's a bit socially awkward, and it kind of helps him
Yeah,
to feel more at ease in certain situations. Yeah, that's true.
exactly. Yeah, sort of like if you think of it, sort of like a dog who is there just to give you emotional
Yeah.
support in a
But
sense.
also, I must say, this was not really so much in focus of the film. It was not one of those interactions that we see a lot of, I feel
No,
like.
no. I also think like this one, the interaction with this character is probably the most sane one, or the more realistic one, or where it can see that it can actually help, as opposed to some of the other roles that
Yeah.
Philip plays, where we will get into them. But what did I want to mention? Oh yeah, I had some more thoughts on what you said. Um, the first one, sort of, you said hiring an actor to portray like a family member, like your mother or father. And I was just reminded of this episode of Black Mirror, which we talked about last year, the one with Paul Giamatti, where he sort of
Mm.
relives his memories in a sort of
Mm-hmm.
simulated reality, and yeah, he gets to, well, how to put it? Yeah, he gets to come to terms with
Mm-hmm.
a very close relationship he had in his, I guess, younger, his, not his
Mm-hmm.
youth, but his younger years. So maybe that's a bit similar to this movie in that regard.
Mm-hmm. In a way, maybe, yeah.
And the second thing was that you mentioned the closest we have here in sort of the Western world and in Europe is like an escort service or a sex worker. And there is actually a scene in the movie where
Mm-hmm.
Philip is seen with a sex worker. It's just after sex. We suppose we don't see what
Yeah.
happened. Where,
I must say, I feel like this was a bit on the nose. Like I can see
hmm
that, okay, people are lonely. It's not easy to create a community around yourself in a new country, especially that is very different to your own culturally. Um, but it and also that the relationships are so transactional. But I feel like it was a bit too obvious to. It was an obvious move to include
hmm
uh the sex worker. I mean, they do seem to have a good relationship in general, but I don't know. It was just like, yeah, okay.
hmm Yeah, that's true. Maybe some scenes or things like the one like you said are maybe a bit on the nose in this film. Yeah, I can see that it's not very something that's very
Oh yeah,
revolutionary.
for sure. I would even say it's clearly American, written for an American audience, I feel like, not for the Japanese audience. At least that's my feeling, because it's written in a very obvious American way. Because I think Japanese films, they tend to be very subtle, where
Yeah.
you just have to like look into the plot, into yourself, into all the little details to know what is going on. And here it's just so obvious sometimes that it's like almost cringeworthy.
hmm I thought that some of the subtext was maybe a bit more subtle, but it's true. It's I guess it's more geared towards an American or a Western audience. That's why we have scenes like the one with the sex worker. But would be interesting to know what the reaction in Japan was and how it was received there. Yeah, so that's I guess what I wanted to add. Let's start with the most
The
infuriating
most.
and
All
let it all
right.
out.
Then I think if you have seen the film, you will know which I mean. And if you haven't, I mean, I guess go watch the movie. But if you don't want to, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have to. Um, And the one that I mean is the interaction, or the when Philip gets rented out to a mother who has a younger biracial daughter, so Japanese. The mother's Japanese and the father was American, but he's not in the picture. And the daughter has never met him, I guess, and doesn't know who he is. And Philip is supposed to help them get into a prestigious, I think, Japanese American school for this girl. And that would be fine. If that was all, it would be fine for me.
Okay,
But yeah, go
before
on.
you add your bat, I just wanted to add some background here that this is a bit autobiographical in the sense that the director and writer Hikari also grew up without a father, and her mom used to make up stories who her dad was. And yeah, I think at one point she mentioned that it was some actor in a movie like we see here. um
Hmm.
I saw this or she mentioned, or she explained this in a roundtable discussion with
Hmm.
other writers. And it's funny, I have a weird reference here because this reminded me of an episode of How I Met Your Mother, which is
Hmm.
basically the same, where Barney Stinson, his mom used to make up that his father was Bob Barker. So yeah, I thought that was really funny that that plot point of How I Met Your Mother actually happened in real life as well.
I mean, I guess it's not far-fetched to imagine that that happens.
Yeah, yeah, true. But go ahead. You were going to add a big but to this
The big
discussion.
but that I have is the thing is, in the film, like initially they say, the goal is to get this girl to the school, right? And for this, they would need to have two parents there, which already is kind of like, yeah, don't they do any background checks on people? That's weird. That's one thing. And the second thing is, the mother, for some reason insists that the girl has to have an authentic relationship with the father for this interview, so it feels more natural. But there is never any interaction in the school between the father and the daughter. So, like, why would they need that? Only to traumatize the child further? Great stuff. You achieved your goals. I don't know. For me, that was like, wasn't it clear? Did you really have to go through this process to know that it was wrong? Or wasn't it clear from the very concept of, yes, I will be rented out for a few months. I will build a relationship with this child as her father, pretending to be her father, to only then just disappear from her life. But I will also still stay in Japan, so there is a chance that she will randomly meet me on the street. I don't know. It's just not that it happens in the film, by the way, because I guess the city is so huge anyway that chances are probably you won't meet them, but still, it's just such a strange concept. And for me, the fact that the mother decides she wants that and she wants some random dude to communicate with her daughter, it's so weird. It's just weird on so many levels to me, and I just can't reconcile this watching this film. I really just can't.
Yeah, I was just trying to think back how this story was introduced, and it's right if you, I mean, I agree with you if you look at it from sort of a more technical perspective, like wouldn't they do a background check? And actually, it's just the mom. Well, the school just needs to interact with the parents, or at least that's what we get to see in the movie. But I think, if I remember correctly, that when this is first pitched to Philip, that they mention that Mia, the girl's character's name, needs to pass a test, and that she was, well, she wasn't feeling confident enough, so that's why they needed, or why the mom wanted sort of a father figure to give her that emotional support. Although that gets a bit diluted later down the line.
I mean, I'm sorry, but even then, how do you know that introducing a major father figure into her life after her not knowing him for like 8 years is gonna have a positive effect on her self-esteem and general well-being. Well, I don't know what you were thinking with. Like, I cannot imagine this happening in real life and turning out well for anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, from the setup, it's very problematic. And I sort of forgot about this these issues, I guess, because how the relationship develops between Philip and Mia, which is maybe put into a bit of a positive light, or is a bit of wishful thinking on part of Hikari. So that's why I forgot a bit about these issues throughout the movie, because their relationship was so genuine, I felt. But yeah, this is definitely one of the more controversial interactions or problematic interactions. And I was also thinking that yeah, it's especially problematic because more towards the end of the movie, when Philip has to sort of leave her life, or the mom decides, okay, she's getting too attached to you. And then I thought, well, this is not worth it, because you're just going to generate an additional trauma to this child
Hmm.
by
For sure.
yeah, by introducing this person and then removing her. So this is where I felt like, yeah, it's problematic.
Yeah, and I just think that, for the film that claims to be so deep and sentimental, it really just ignores such simple things that just like on an ethical level, you wouldn't even come up with that. I don't understand why you would make such a premise and claim for it to be so, it's so deep and you have to think about those things. Yeah, but like you didn't think about those things while you were writing it. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just stupid to me. And also just generally speaking, it's almost like a tearjerker of a situation, but you made this premise yourself. It's not like you found yourself in this situation. You created the situation and now you want us to feel bad about it. I just like you did it to yourself.
Yeah. Maybe I was just thinking that, yeah, ethically, or it's quite, what's the word when we qualify this?
Questionable.
Questionable. Let's go there.
Yeah. I
Um,
just think also, ethically speaking, if everybody who is involved in the plot, so if you hire someone and this someone is supposed to perform a role, and if everybody who is involved in this process knows about you performing, it's fine. But if there are people involved who think that this is real and this is true, this is not fine. Ethically, it's just
yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
the
yeah.
situation with the lesbian couple, the parents think that it is real, and I think it is not, even in this situation, ethically speaking, it's wrong to the parents. I don't think you should be doing that. And I don't even want to start with the girl situation because it's clear to me that it's a, wrong on so many levels, not only ethical.
So that's why I mentioned that the interaction with this gamer was the most sane one, because I think he knew that he was pretending to be his friend.
Yeah, and even
Um,
the first situation where he finds himself in, right, with this fake funeral that he goes to, where the person that hired them is the person who is dead. So
mhm.
he's playing himself as a dead man at his funeral, and then people are just saying great things about him, and
Yeah,
this is what he kind of goes through, and that I guess gives him some kind of an uplift. So I think that is also like it is strange, but it's fine. Like that's if that's how you choose to deal with your issues, that's okay. That's
yeah,
your
yeah,
way to do
true.
it.
And maybe those two could be ones that are taken from real life, where these are maybe stories that Hikari picked up from other people, and well, the one with the girl is the one created for this movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things about the initial interaction with the funeral because I thought that was quite funny, or you get a couple of laughs in our cinema. I mean, Brendan getting in late and the situation is completely surreal, and then he is such a big guy and he has to move down the last row, and then when the supposedly dead person gets up from the coffin,
Hmm.
it's super strange, and that's very Japanese humor in my book. But yeah, I thought that was quite funny as well. Going back to the interaction with Mia, I was just thinking that if I put myself in the shoes of the mother, that yeah, maybe it's that she feels very desperate and really wants her to get into the school, that she doesn't even consider all these ethical considerations that we have.
Hmm.
Maybe the same thing with the wedding, which is one of the first gigs that Philip gets, and yeah, then that's why you go to such a service which is out of the norm, because you're very desperate. From what I know from the Japanese school system, I think it's a bit similar to here, that I think they even talk about it in the movie, that there is quite a lot of pressure on the kids about
Hmm.
performing.
That also reminds me of
And
Switzerland.
yeah, and well, and then that's why getting into a good school is such a huge deal, and that you would go through such lengths to get your kid into school.
We also meet two other characters, or well, three other characters that work for the company where he is at. One of which is his boss, which I also found this was a nice plot twist they had there, of one thing. But what I wanted to say is one of the characters that we kind of spend a little bit more time with is the girl, his coworker, who is hired mostly to impersonate lovers, so mistresses of husbands, and it's either the husbands hiring them. I think it's the husbands hiring them so the wife can live through this experience of
Sort of
how do you say?
shaming or
Yeah, like what's the
shaming
word that I
this
was thinking
woman.
of? Confronting, sorry,
Yeah,
confronting the mistress. And there's also some physical violence involved in it. She, at one point, we see a scene where she gets smacked on the face and it has a bruise afterwards. So I think this was a very interesting like generally a very interesting plot line. And it would, for me personally, be more interesting to explore that than what we see with Philip, because it also just never gets deep enough for me.
hmm
It's like everything is so superficial, and all it does is trying to squeeze an emotion out of you. And I was just mostly bored with those things. And as I said, mad about just the premise of certain stories that they made up. But at least the one with the mistress and the husbands that cannot talk to their wives openly, the wives that are staying with those husbands, this was an interesting plot line that I think I would rather stay with for a bit longer.
yeah. So I think this one might the sort of the storyline with Aiko, the other employee of the rental family, might also be one of these stories that are taken from real life. I
Hmm.
thought this is also a problematic way this service can go.
Hmm.
Um, on the one hand, I feel like this is also something very Japanese, because as an outsider, this thing of the husband finding or bringing forward his lover, so that she can apologize to his wife.
Hmm.
Something very strange, that yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get it as
She apologizes, but not the husband.
exactly. Yeah,
But
yeah, that,
this is why I'm saying that it would be more interesting to explore because this
yeah.
dynamic, the general dynamic of, men and women in this society and who like all this is more interesting to me than we create a problematic situation and it gets more problematic by the end. Oh, we didn't see this coming. It's just like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't see why I'm supposed to give my attention to this.
Yeah, this is also very, for me, this has a lot to do with the formalities in
Mm-hmm.
Japanese culture. I guess we will talk a bit more about that later. But yeah, this interaction is very strange, but I find it problematic in the sense that, well, the physical violence that results on Aiko,
Mm-hmm.
the employee, and well, in the movie we just see a slap, but it could even go to further lengths.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, also the other thing that is problematic for me is that, well, it's just sort of in the movie, it's at least the husband who is to blame, but he sort of rejects or doesn't take responsibility for what he did, and he blames it on another person. So yeah, that's very very strange. I wanted to talk about sort of the other big um interaction in this movie that is between Philip and Kwoko, who is
Mm-hmm.
this Japanese actor, because I feel like his interaction with Coco and Mia are sort of the more dominant ones in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
or are sort of mirrored in some sense.
Yeah.
And in a sense, the interaction with Coco is similar to the opening one with this guy who is celebrated at his funeral, and in the regarding Coco, it's his daughter who hires the rental family so that Philip portrays a journalist and to make Coco feel important again about the work that he did. And here he also, it's, I think for the most part, it's very a safe interaction. I mean, he's there to give him emotional support and build up his confidence. Although the issues arise when, or once we know as an audience that Coco has Alzheimer's because he starts
Mm-hmm.
to forget things and he wanders off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, here in this case, the service can be problematic because at least from the premise or what Philip's boss tells him, I mean, I think his boss name is Shinji. Shinji tells him that he is there to sort of enable the customers, or he's there to listen to the customers and follow through with what they ask him. But if your customer is a person who is well mentally well is dealing with a disease, then this can become problematic, and we actually see this as a plot point in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think here, this was a bit of a so the daughter hires him, and what she thinks is gonna make him feel better is if a journalist kind of highlights his professional career. But eventually, where the film leads us, where the plot leads us, is that that's not what he needs, and that's not what he regrets in his life. And what actually is what is on his mind a little more is the fact that he never, or he didn't get to spend so much time with his daughter while she was young, and generally like that he was absent, I think probably. Um, yeah, so again shows a bit that you maybe have good intentions, or the daughter had good intentions, but you don't know what the person actually needs.
Yeah. And this is what I said, that it mirrors the relationship between Philip and Mia, this father-daughter relationship with Mia a bit. Although I feel
Hmm.
like I would have loved to see that more explored in the film, the relationship between Coco and his daughter, because we don't get to see the impact that Philip's
Hmm.
interaction has
Hmm.
on their relationship. But yeah, there are a couple of moments where these two interactions are sort of intercut, and we see parallels between
Yeah.
these relationships.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would make it better if we actually could see some well, for especially also for him, the fact that he regrets not having spent time with his daughter and not having this connection with her, and now also not trying to have it. It's just a bit shallow to me. And again, as Philip also says himself in the film, he is not a father. He just pretends to be one, right? So it's not like he can really recreate this father-daughter relationship. He can just mimic it for us a little bit, but it's not real. He knew this kid for like 2 weeks or something. It's not real. And I think uh, this fakeness and the fact that we don't get to see a real father trying to create a connection with his real daughter, who is, I think, again, like as if the focus isn't on the wrong thing for me. Like the film mentions so many different aspects, and yes, they would be interesting in themselves, but they don't get explored. It's just through this surrogate of Philip that we get to look into, like get a glimpse into those stories, but they don't get a resolution, and we don't get any more than a glimpse into the stories, although in themselves they would be interesting.
Here there are many things that I can latch on to. I guess the first one I wanted to talk about is the you mentioned the word real, and I have here a quote from the boss of the rental family, who says, "Sometimes the story we tell ourselves becomes the truth." And yeah, I feel like this can be okay if it's like in the case of the gamer,
Yep.
where sort of you know that it's not real, but you sort of construct your own reality, and that gives you or makes you feel, I don't know, well or better or more confident or whatever that
Mhm.
causes. So in that sense, yeah, I think if you approach it that way, then I see that that can be fine. And then the other thing where I feel like some of the more beautiful moments of this movie are is especially when Philip goes onto this trip with Coco, where well, you mentioned it, that he relives or his previous relationship with his first girlfriend or wife. I don't remember what it was. And they travel pretty far away to this village, and then they hike up on a mountain, and there's this old house which is now in ruins. I think it's his childhood home, Coco's childhood home. And then he tells Philip, "Well, this is where I started my acting," and basically, yeah, just sits on the floor and starts telling Philip about his the first time he started acting. And what I thought also, what while watching this movie was interesting, that when they were sitting there in that old house and the house is destroyed, um, we all know these moments from movies where we see an old house and then they basically visually reconstruct how the house was before, right? But in this case, it doesn't happen, and that's how it usually works for us, that we can't fully and faithfully reconstruct our memories. And yeah, so that was interesting in the sense of, okay, what can movies do and what are we as humans not able to do? Like we maybe see some images, but we can't remember fully like how we moved around the room, or yeah, it's basically just a feeling, but the movie very objectively recreates memories in a way that we can't.
I didn't think about that when I was watching.
Yeah.
To be honest, at this point, I was not really thinking about much. All I was thinking is, will this movie ever end?
Yeah. Here, the other thing that I found really beautiful, and I think it's a topic in many Japanese movies and also animes. It's this thing about the city versus sort of
Hmm.
the villages and the nature.
Mm-hmm.
And one example was, I think we both saw this movie a couple years ago. It was Drive My Car, right? Where it's this movie
I
about
have not
also,
seen it.
no? It's this movie about, I think, a sort of theater director, and then he hires this driver, and they drive out to a small sort of fishing village in Japan where he continues to write his personal story. But yeah, there are many examples of this, I feel like, in Japanese movies. And one really striking image for me was when Coco walks up to this tree. I don't know what kind of tree it is, but this tree with these huge roots, how these roots sort of twisted. And yeah, I think how they shot that was really really impressive.
Yeah, I must
And
say, just the general the landscape, I mean, not only the natural landscape, but also the cityscape, that is shot very nicely. The in that sense, I think that's where the film deserves some praise, is just how it was shot and how the yeah, the landscape and the cityscape were shown. I think that was sometimes very impressive. And
yeah,
the
yeah.
nature that you see when he leaves the city with Coco is, um, I would say, one of the better parts of the film.
Mm-hmm. No, but totally. These establishing shots more towards the beginning of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
where we get to see. I don't know if it ever gets mentioned. I think it's Tokyo, right?
Mm-hmm. I think
Um,
so, yeah.
yeah, but well, basically images that some of us have seen. Huge city with, I think one of these big crossings is shown where it's usually lots amounts of people and the trains, and then on the other hand, sort of this nature, like these forests and the
Mm-hmm.
coast, and then the forest. And I thought this the juxtaposition was interesting. It again, it's maybe not so subtle, it's quite obvious, but
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that it's interesting how well these are quite the shots are quite wide, I would say, right? So we get a lot from the city or a lot from uh, these aerial shots of the forest. But then it's interesting how well I at least thought interesting how you feel the loneliness if you compare those two, because in the establishing shots of the city, it's actually there are like actually lots of people, or at least you
Mm-hmm.
suspect that there are lots of people in those houses. People do feel alone, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how what I felt that those shots transmitted. But on the other hand, when they are hiking in nature, it's I think there's one shot where you see Philip and Coco. It's the two of them going through this forest, and they are alone, basically the only people there. But you don't feel alone, or I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel alone. It's and maybe it's because of the movement of the nature and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is like you reading into it. I can see what you
Probably,
mean,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
but I just feel like this is not done in any particular way. It's not like it invokes that in you. It's just, yeah, it's kind of how what you read into it,
Yeah, probably true.
or
Yeah.
from it. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just like I can't really see how they engineered it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just us. That's us bringing it into it. And but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Other than that, I thought like the how the movie was shot was pretty traditional. I didn't see
Hmm.
any like very amazing shots or anything
Yeah.
groundbreaking. The other thing that I found was really beautiful, and this is very Japanese, I would say. It's more towards the end of, I think it's the second to last scene where Philip reunites with Mia, and then we see these sakura trees
Hmm.
and the blossoms,
Yeah.
and it's amazing because it's we just see white, and
Hmm.
I don't know, I hadn't seen that before. I guess there must be hundreds of Japanese movies where they do show that,
Yeah,
but
I feel like every Japanese movie,
yeah,
especially if it's made for a non-Japanese audience, includes that because
yeah,
it's just this very stereotypical Japanese thing that everybody knows and loves and is fascinated about in Japan. or in regards with Japanese culture. But that again also makes me think it's a bit cliche that you
Hmm.
include that in your movie that is set in Japan.
Yeah. Nevertheless, I thought it was quite beautiful. Um, and yeah, the other thing is maybe a bit similar, maybe going in the road of cliches or traditional, are these ceremonies that we have. I think the first or one of the first gigs you mentioned is the wedding, right? Where they wear these very traditional robes, and there's a whole ceremony, which I felt like that either, well, first of all, that's super traditional, I feel like. I don't know if lots of families do that. And the second one is that that family must be very rich to do that, because like the whole
Yeah,
wedding
but
ceremony was huge.
I think this I can relate to because in my culture you take credits for like out bank loans to host a wedding.
Yeah.
It costs millions and you do
Mm.
it. Well, yeah, millions in the currency of the country. But still, I think it in some cultures it really is once in a lifetime chance and or you hope that it is and then you just spend so much money on a wedding. So that I can definitely see
Yeah, true.
happening. But then again, that's what makes it even more sad, you know? It's just like you create this kind of fake event for your family. They will have pictures from it. They will probably display those pictures in their home. Every time you talk to them, they will be asking, "How's your partner? And where is he? Why haven't we seen him in 10 years?" You know, it's just like, how is this gonna go on? Do you intend to keep this lie up? Because this, or is your intention to say, oh, I got a divorce, and then what? Do you have to create a new lie for them to find a new partner? I don't know. It's just like I don't see this being viable at all. I don't see how this is supposed to live on after this
Yeah,
fake
if you think
wedding.
about it, it sounds like a lot of work to keep that lie alive. And
Exactly.
maybe two things on that. I think in they mentioned that they plan to move, or this person planned to move away. So
Mhm.
maybe that would make it easier if you're not in constant contact with your family.
Yeah, I understand it and I can see it, but you are still sometimes in contact with your family, I assume. If your family is so important to you that you create this fake event for them and they know that you are okay in a different country and you are with someone, you're not alone, somebody takes care of you, then I guess you do care about your family, but you still, that tells me that you will probably stay in contact with them. And by that, I don't mean talking to them once a year. You probably talk to them sometimes. But for me, the natural question would be, where is your partner now? Why isn't he ever around? Because they will probably never see him again. And that's just like, it's really strange to me.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I was also thinking that maybe this is also the Japanese thing, that it's very important to keep up appearances.
Yeah,
So they would go through these lengths
yeah.
just to, yeah, I think there's like this concept of keeping a face in Japanese
Hmm.
culture or something like that.
See, this is where I'm really sometimes lost, and I don't know if that is me not knowing enough about the culture, and that's why I don't understand it, or if it's just if it really just doesn't make sense because to me it really doesn't make sense. But that's where I'm a bit lost because I don't see where if it's me who is wrong or if it's just the premise.
Mhm. Maybe it's true. Maybe what this movie struggles a bit is, well, you mentioned it a bit, that it has some very cliche moments for American audiences, but on the other hand, some cultural aspects which Japanese audiences might be very familiar with sound very strange to us and require a bit further explanation.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's question is, who is this movie aimed at?
You know what this reminds me of and where it is done really well is Farewell with Aquafina. because this is also she is Chinese American, so she's culturally speaking, I think mostly American or identifies more with that culture. But part of her is also still Chinese and is part of the Chinese culture. And so there is this so the film is about how they find out that the grandmother is terminally ill. She, I think, has cancer, and the family does know that, but they choose to keep it secret from the grandmother. And so that's where her character, who's part of both worlds, but I think since the film is made more for the Western audience, it's more aimed at the Americans. So we see it through this American perspective, not being able to understand the culture and the nuance that where the other family members are coming from. I think this is shown really well in that film. But in Rental Family, it's just a bit of a mess of things, and nothing gets resolved. Everything is ethically speaking very clumsy and not clear. Doesn't get a resolution. Nothing gets better by the end. I just like I don't know. It's just yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I don't know if nothing gets better by the end, but yeah, you reminded me that I haven't finished watching Farewell, so I shall resume that soon.
You should. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah. The other I talked about traditional scenes. The other one was the funeral, Coco's funeral, where well, there I can understand because he was an actor and it looked like he was well, sort of quite rich
Hmm.
and esteemed. And at the end, I guess his wish got fulfilled because there's lots of media at his funeral, and they televise his funeral. So I guess he got his wish fulfilled.
Then I have a question.
Yeah,
What did you think of Braden? What am I saying? Brandon Fraser's performance.
I thought it was a like very Brendan Fraser like performance, or at least from him watching his last interviews. Or well, I also read a bit about that around the time when he was starting to do The Whale, which is his last big movie, which I saw, which I really liked. He also got the script for this, and that's when he sort of also started the process for this. Although Rental Family, I think, got shot in 2024, and The Whale was before that. But he plays Philip with this. He has lots of little gestures about which communicate surprise to me and sensibility. Lots of it is through his eyes, and then it's also quite funny because he's a quite a tall person. I think he's like 190 centimeters. So it's always funny when we get to see him walk around Tokyo and he's like a giant.
Hmm.
So that's adds to the humor, but also communicates that's well, he's a gaijin, he's an outsider in many ways. Although I also thought that it was great that he learned Japanese for this, and I thought it was quite decent.
Speaking of which, is it decent? I mean, obviously I can't say I can tell.
Yeah,
But that would be interesting for me to know how good it was because obviously he's been living there. The character's been living there for 7 years, so he would definitely know some Japanese. What I found very annoying though is how he always switches into English. And in a way, I mean, okay, other characters also switch into English with him. So I guess he is invited to do it. But in a lot of scenes, he switches first. And I think there are actually a lot of people in Japan who don't speak English. And from people that visited Japan that I personally know, a lot of people struggled to communicate with people because not everybody speaks English, and you would just communicate through gestures and try to make yourself understood. But that's what I found a bit annoying about the film is again this assumption of an American that everybody will understand you and everybody will speak English. And will be speaking English to you. And I don't know, it was just a little bit for the fact that he's been living there so long. I thought that would that
Well,
really be like that? I don't know.
I will push back here a little, because most of the characters he interacts with are, or at least from my understanding, it's clear that these people know English and are maybe from a bit of a higher societal class.
Yeah, that is
Well,
true. That I
Cuoco is
agree
an
with.
actor. Then Mia's mother is has some contact with America and also wants her to get into American school. So yeah, from that perspective, I feel like the characters he interacts with make it clear that they also know English. So I didn't find that problematic, but it's true. I also heard that not everyone speaks English in Japan, but at least the characters he interacts with, it makes sense. Although what made me wonder what you said is um, the switching between English and German. Maybe that wasn't that well thought out.
In
That he
Japanese.
sometimes, sorry, yeah, thank you, Japanese. That he sometimes initiates it, and I don't know if that would be proper because
hmm
like at least from what I understand is the Japanese language has lots of these registers and it's quite
hmm
formal.
hmm
So him initiating or switching it to English, I don't know if that would be considered rude.
hmm
Yeah, just one.
I that especially sticks out to me in the scene with in the school when they have the interview at the school because initially they speak Japanese and everybody the school board that is assessing them also they speak Japanese and then suddenly he switches into English, you know, and it's fine. You know, the thing is, it's okay. He probably doesn't speak Japanese perfectly because Japanese is also, I think, a difficult language. I mean, we don't know how much time he spent learning it and everything, but I think it would still be called for him to ask if it's okay and not to like mix. I just think like I guess it again, it's maybe it's okay and I'm just reading too much into it, but I feel like he should probably first ask if it's okay to completely switch into English instead of mixing and saying one sentence in Japanese, another sentence in English, then switch into Japanese again. It's confusing for everyone, and I don't think it would be, I guess for the purposes of the like the script and the dialogue, I guess it's okay to omit it, but I don't know. Is it okay to just say he just speaks English and we just do the whole film in English? I don't know.
I agree with you here. How should I put this? I think for the movie, it works in the sense that I feel like usually the conversation starts in with a short Japanese phrase, then they
hmm
switch, and then maybe some formalisms or thank yous are
hmm
again done in Japanese. I feel like just to bring the story across, I appreciate Brendan Fraser learning enough Japanese to do that, and I think it works in the movie. But I agree with you that probably if this was real life, there would be a lot more Japanese being spoken, so they wouldn't
hmm
talk as much English. Then maybe just some, just to round this out, things that I'll take with me from this movie. I remember that I forgot to mention one of the shots more towards the beginning of the movie, which is also not a very subtle reference, but is when Philip is in his apartment and is looking at his neighbor on the other side, and we see
hmm
these apartments. So that's for me, that's a bit of a reference to Rear Window. Um, and I thought that, well, this is what Philip wants to feel like at the beginning of the movie. Like also this, he's also looking for a connection, and that's why as he does a couple of these gigs, he starts to enjoy it, and because he's also looking for a connection. I feel like sometimes when you do sort of somewhat questionable things like this rental service, but if if the end result is good, then can we just ignore the way it was done? Is my question. We don't get to see lot
Hmm.
many of the results
That's true.
if they are positive. We talked about that, but at least for Philip, he with me at the end, even he gets to have that sort of friendly relationship with her, and it improves his life.
You know what? That reminds me of this plot. Well, not really a twist, but the part of the story where he gets a call from his agent asking or telling him that he got a role, but that it is in Korea and he would have to go there, and he refuses. And I'm like, dude. I just like for me this was the most unrealistic thing and I just could not relate one bit. And the reason why he does that is because, oh, he started this fake relationship by pretending to be a girl's father. So he can't leave her now. Just like you can, and maybe you should. Maybe you shouldn't find yourself in this situation to begin with.
Yeah, how I saw it, I mean, I ignored those thoughts when I was watching the movie. And for him at this point is that he really likes doing his job. He gets something out of this job. I mean, on an emotional level, and he feels like he's helping people. So that's why for him, well, it's not easy to say no, but that's his argumentation or his thinking.
That is why I think this film is so saccharine that I cannot watch it. It's definitely not for me. And what I'm gonna take from this film is that those problematic things that are happening are would be good in themselves if the makers of this film didn't shy away from following up on those things. But I just think like they stop a bit too short of resolving and well delving a little bit into the problem of it and uncovering the ethical issues and talking a little bit more about them. I just think it doesn't get done in this film, and that was what was annoying about it.
For me, this movie is imperfect, and yeah, some of these interactions we mentioned are problematic, and maybe some of the ones that are a bit sidelined don't get talked about enough, but I feel like that's where some of its value is. One thing that I take with me is this message of communicating truthfully, in the sense that I don't know if they don't achieve it in this movie, but it shows how hard it is, right? And especially I think like in a culture like Japan, and I can relate to that a lot as well here in Switzerland as well, where we are so absorbed in our societal roles and in our routines, especially in the city, that it creates a huge distance, and that's sometimes very, or at least for me, it's very difficult to break through. And yeah, and actually requires a lot of courage to say the truth and break those barriers. So
That is true.
is this a way of doing it? So just move around those barriers in a way? I don't know, but at least I think like this those questions are raised in the movie for me.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm glad that we had this discussion because, well, I was a bit more enamored with this movie, but I like that you brought me down to earth a bit. I think I needed that, and I
I
think you
love
needed
it
to
how we
rant.
just like we never agree on anything.
That's not
I
true.
think
That's not true.
we're perfect hosts for this show. Is because we always have two different opinions.
Well, but something that we might agree on is
Ooh.
Paddington 2 is an incredible movie.
I haven't seen it, obviously.
Listen to Nicolas
You
Cage.
know me. You know if there's animation involved, I'm out.
Listen to Nicolas
Well,
Cage.
okay, but the recently I watched K-pop Demon Hunters and I liked that, right?
Yeah, I'm proud with you. I'm proud of
I'm
you
not
for that.
completely opposed,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I am. It is definitely there's a higher threshold to animation for me.
Okay, that was it for this episode about Rental Family. Thank you for listening and catch you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.